In the last months, we published some videos about the construction of the house that I've renovated here in Catalunya. And those videos done really well, like well over 2 million views on the videos, but they also came with about 4,000 comments and many questions. So I'm making this video to address some of those questions and hopefully be of use to people who are interested in renovating a house or the logistics and issues in doing so. This video is sponsored by Nordvpn. A little bit more about that later. So I will break up these questions into 3 areas, kind of overview things about the property. Secondly, logistical things, how much did it cost, how did I do it? And then third, detailed questions which people have asked, or multiple people have asked the same question, and I'll try and answer them all. So the overview, people often are asking, where is it exactly? We're in Catalunya, we're about 45 minutes from Andorra and about an hour and 45 from Barcelona, and we're near a town called Organya. The Pyrenees is made up of a bunch of valleys. They all kind of point up into the mountains, and we're just in one of these valleys, and many of these valleys, they're all just super beautiful. And I'm very happy with the one we bought the house in. How old is the house? A lot of people want to know. It's on the door, on the bottom floor, it has a thing which says it's 220 years old, marked in the wood. So it might be 220 years old. Probably, I think the barn beside it, or the first floor of the barn, is older. And often they would build one floor and then, 50 to 100 years later, they build another floor. So the actual full age, don't know, but at least the door on the front of the house is 220 years old. So onto the general questions. People mostly want to know how much the house cost and how much the build cost. To give like the headline figure, the house cost 80,000 euros, but with tax and fees and things, it comes in around 90,000 euros. And for the renovation itself, that cost around 65,000 euros for everything, including architect, lawyer, furniture, taps, fittings, cutlery, everything. Probably if you were kind of strip that down for the build materials itself, we're talking about 55,000 euros. And if we really pair out some of the big expensive things like the giant window at the front of the house, that was about 4,000 euros. Heat recovery, 2,200, 2,500, something like that. So you can kind of see that you could potentially do a renovation for a lot less money. But I just went all in, like the solar kit for 5,000 euros. If you are really interested in all the detail of this build and you want to get that, I've documented it all into an ebook, and you can find a link for that in the description. A lot of people want to know how I learned all the skills. Do I have a professional building background or experience? And the answer to that is no, but I have experience of building vans conversions. So, I mean, it's obviously not a house renovation, but there's some practical skills which I have learned over time. And I also have a background in design, which gives some practical planning perspectives. And I think maybe one thing that was particularly useful for me in terms of conceptually being able to take on the challenge is that as I grew up, I had an example of parents and grandparents who would always do almost all the work in the house themselves. So therefore, quite well embedded in me is the idea that you can just do anything. And that's probably one of the most useful things in terms of taking on the build, because if you don't believe you can do it, you won't start. But if you can believe that it will probably be work-outable, and when you're in it, then you have no choice but do the work, figure it out, and make it happen. So I don't have an experience, but I do have an internal belief structure that means that I can take on the project. And I think, if you can cultivate that, then probably you can do the whole build anyway. Did I have professional help? A lot of people want to know about that, because obviously it'd be kind of like possible to edit out a lot of things. Now there are some things you're not allowed to do by yourself. One is installing aircon. So I prepared everything. They came, they installed it. To do the big opening for the window, I had 1 day of support. Again, we did all the preparation. Proper builders came in, they helped install the beams, which was good because actually we needed 4 people to lift the beams. And that was a requirement from my architect that we have support to do that. And that's completely fair, because if that went wrong, then the whole front of the house falls down. and it would be really, really bad. Also, I initially wanted to hire a machine to do the sandblasting to clean up all the beams, but it wasn't possible. I could only hire a guy and actually that turns out to be the best solution because you have a big generator. He had one guy constantly helping him to fill up the sand, and it's like a really, really horrible job. He has a hood with separate airflow and just horrible, and I wouldn't really want to do that work actually. And it was better just to have that outsourced. So in terms of professional help, that's it. I did have the help of my friend Tadas, who helped me with the roof, especially the roof phase. My girlfriend helped with a lot of plastering and doing the kitchen stuff. Just general friends who happened to be around when we put the big roof beam on. That was definitely more than a one-man job. I also had a friend who's an electrician, and he helped me do the mains box, the MCU, where basically I had all the wires, and what I was worried about was if I do it myself, I could probably do it, but then might be a bit of a mess by the time I got it right. Whereas watching him do it, I just know the tricks now, and it's not a big deal. I could probably do it myself, but it was good to have someone just do it with me, and just make sure that was all done, because if you bring all your wires down and then you cut them short or something, and then you need to make a load of changes, you get yourself in trouble. So yeah, for professional support, I guess we're talking Aircon, which was the guy who was here for 2 days, beams 1 day, sand guy 1 day, and Carlos helping me do the electrics. So we took like 5 or 6 days of professional support in the whole build. This content is sponsored by Nordvpn. Now, a VPN is a really useful thing to have, and there's a lot of reasons why. To sum it up, a VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and it encrypts your data as it goes from your computer to the internet, to websites, and it comes back. So there's a lot of reasons why you should use a VPN while you're browsing the internet. The primary reason is security. It keeps you safe from hackers, and it means that your information that passes back and forwards is all encrypted and impossible to read. It also enables you to access your personal information on the internet that you keep there in a secure manner, and it means that no one can find your IP address, which is also indicative of your location. It also gives you more privacy when browsing online, because it stops your ISP or government or other organizations understanding or being able to see what information you pass backwards and forwards. It also stops that annoying ad tracking where you search for one thing and you have 100 ads for that for the 3 weeks following. And for streaming, if you're browsing a streaming service to watch your favorite film, but it's not available in your country, you can just change your IP address based on choosing another country for your VPN to route through, and then you can access that content. I've been using VPNs in general for about 8 years, and I've been using Nordvpn for about a year now, and I found it to be really, really good. What's even better is they're giving 70% off this Christmas with a 2-year subscription and a month free. All you've got to do is use this link and this discount code, and you'll be accessing that discount through my channel. De nada. Now, back to the house stuff. A lot of people ask, how long did the renovation take? Now, I did it in sort of 3 blocks. The first bit was I just literally emptied the property. The property was not emptied when I bought it, and everywhere, including the barn, was just full of stuff. It took me 6 weeks to clear everything in the property. I didn't really count that as renovation, but it was just like the clearance. Then I went to the UK, built a van, came back, plan and permission was sorted, and then I started the renovation proper. For the renovation proper, this was in 2 phases. First was 4 months where I did basically all the major structural work, openings, floors, roof, these things, and installing all the new windows and making it sort of sealed up. That took me to December, and then I had 2 months off where we went basically on holiday, because I didn't really want to spend the coldest part of winter, and it does get quite cold here in winter, doing like fiddly stuff in the house with wet cement and cold hands. So basically went away. That was great because I also needed the rest. The roof work was extremely taxing physically. When I came back, then I did the second block, which was basically 8 months of non-stop work, which is too much work really from a perspective of health, but I was just like extremely psyched to finish the project. And I've just found if I took rest, I'd feel more anxious about not completing the house than if I just worked. So in that process, my time plus my friend Taddis's time who helped with the first phase, I think we're probably looking around 4,000 hours of like hard work. The other part of the work that is like kind of hidden is just the amount of time you have to spend ordering stuff, especially ordering it in Spain. So it's a different language. You've got to find out what the thing you need and then figure out where to buy it and then compare it with the other things and make sure it's the right thing and then just order. And I spent countless hours online ordering. It was the worst part of the whole build. I'd prefer to be carrying concrete up the stairs with a bad back than like just sitting there for hours ordering stuff which might not arrive, especially in pandemic conditions. Another question is, where did like the kit come from? Now, obviously the majority of the stuff was bought locally, but there was some stuff which pre-Brexit I shipped from the UK just because I could like find it for better value or better spec, or it was just sometimes easier to kind of like communicate and make a plan and shop. So for these, I bought the wood over. Wood flooring in Spain isn't really used and generally it's very expensive. So it's better to buy it now. It would be better to buy it in Germany or France. But for me, it was quite easy to ship it from the UK. And to ship a pallet, generally anything big is 250 euros to ship. I shipped the fire and all the chimney stuff because I bought it from a company and we spec'd it out and that was quite good. And also, the heat recovery unit, locally it was quite expensive. So I've just decided just to ship it from the UK. And again, you know, same, 250 shipping for basically all three things. Now we'll just kind of go over the detail and some specific questions people asked. One question is, why did I not cantilever the balcony? So I have the balcony and I put some struts down from it. The reasons for that were partly logistical and partly just to do with the dimensions of the house. Like I wasn't exactly sure the size of balcony I wanted until I'd cleared other stuff and done other work. Also where I'd want to put the cantilevers through, the floor's not that thick, so it just was going to be a bit tricky to make a decent sized balcony without destroying the existing floor and the ceiling of the room below. So I just went for the simple method of just one which is supported. And also from a DIY perspective, if you're supporting it and it's just like compression down on some metal beams, there's not a lot that can go wrong. So it felt just a safer, better, easier option, as well as fit with the actual construction and issues with, you know, the actual build and the thing I'm modifying. Where did the rubbish go? Quite a few people asked where I got rid of all the stuff when I cleared the place. This was just a matter of sorting it all, which was also a time-consuming thing. So I had like 2 trailers just of jars which went to recycling, and some stuff from that was composted. Other stuff went to the dump. Other stuff was taken to places like for all the metal and anything I could separate, I separated. And asbestos I put in a corner in a pile. I don't know what to do with that yet. It's a bit tricky to get rid of asbestos. When I was building the house, there's a local quarry here and they will deliver you an enormous dumpster. It's like, imagine your normal building skip, but 2.5 times the size. Amazingly, they could just get it outside the window. So basically, someone's asked, or a few people asked, where did that go and how much was removed? I filled 3 of these things and they're probably around 10 to 12 tons each. So that's like, you know, 30 tons plus coming out of the house. And that's only material which is like mineral based, so rocks, cement, plasterboard, all plaster, all that sort of stuff. Anything which was metal went to a different place. Anything which was wood, I was either usually burned, and anything which was rock, I kept all the rocks because rocks are useful. So I mean, the other interesting thing really with that is if you take out 30 tons, it's a pretty good chance of putting in about 20. It's amazing how much stuff you move in and out for the renovation. That kind of really surprised me. There's quite a few comments basically saying it would have been quicker just to knock it down and restart. Why didn't you just knock it down and rebuild an entire new house? I think quite a few of those comments probably come from North America, where it's kind of more normal to just knock the house down and rebuild it because of the type of materials it's built of, and they're not usually very old or don't have a lot of historic connection. Here, I really doubt you would get planning permission to completely level the house and build an entirely new one. If it was already basically entirely ruined, just a few foundational walls, probably you could build an entirely new house on those foundations if it was a house before and it was in the right urban area and everything else. But if I was to say I want to level it and restart, largely I don't think I get those permissions. And also with the character of the beams, and it's kind of cool to have an old house. A lot of people are very upset with flip-flops in construction use. I just want to let you know that they are from the Havaiana workwear range, and therefore they're totally legit for this kind of work. Obviously, if you're doing like heavy demo, you want to wear like some boots or something. But there is something about wearing flip-flops when you're doing like, say, big angle groin cut-in. It does make you less complacent. You're very careful where your feet are when you wear flip-flops, whereas if you've got shoes on, maybe you're not. So I don't know necessarily it's more dangerous, but as I said, Havaiana workwear range, not sponsored or affiliated with them. Right, what else? Some people have asked why you can't install your own AC. I don't know the real reasons for it, probably to do with the gases or something like this, but it's just a royal decree. You're just not allowed to do it yourself, which means you have to buy the AC unit through the company who installs, because they don't like it if you buy it and then try and install it. They want to supply at the same time because they get a markup and a margin with the unit. A few specific questions. Tucker Turkey, I would love to know what you eat to keep up your phenomenal strength and energy. Are you fully plant-based? Well, actually, I'm not quite fully plant-based because I still eat eggs and cheese on occasion, but we are largely plant-based diet, and we certainly don't eat meat. Another one from The Silent Traveler. Hi Nate, thanks for sharing your DIY experience. Well done, it's a beautiful and cozy place you have built. May I ask how many pages and how detailed is your ebook? So the ebook is, I think, around like 180 pages or something like that. It's detailed in the areas where there's not masses of detail easily available online. So there's no point in me putting lots of detail in how to tile. There's 100 videos which are really good, which will teach you how to do that. Mine's more like how to do the things that I found hard to find out. So even just like the basics of your electrics, or how to put in your conduit for the local regulations, or how to build the roof. These things where actually it's very hard to kind of find the overview information. Or like the heat system for the fire and the back boiler. These things I've detailed, and the other things I haven't detailed because it's just so easy to find that information. So I've tried to base it on what I found hard to find out, which will probably mean if someone's doing the same thing, they'll also find that hard to find out. Therefore, it's in the ebook. Vicky had, and many others, I would hasten to add, asked, why would a crucifix and a picture of Christ be creepy? So this is when I mentioned in the build that there's a creepy room with a crucifix. Now the room was creepy and there have to be a crucifix. I'm not like anti-Jesus, but at the same time, I don't know about like horribly tortured to death dying man on a torture execution device would be my first choice of decor.